Flight attendant denies twin girls first class unaware their father owns the airline. Greetings, everyone. Have you ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated because of your appearance, your background, or simply because people made assumptions about who you were? In this story, you will meet two bright young sisters whose fates are nearly derailed by someone who believes they do not belong where they rightfully should be. Before we dive into their journey, please let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Every place, every background, every voice matters. Jordan West had grown accustomed to moving through life with silent assurance. He wore suits cut from the finest fabrics and possessed a calm, businesslike manner. His eyes were kind but carried a glint of unwavering confidence. He had once been an ordinary man with big dreams, determined to change the course of his future. Decades of perseverance had transformed him into something more than a mere success story. He became a titan in the aviation world, quietly overseeing an airline he'd helped build from the ground up. Unlike many industry moguls who flaunted their status, Jordan had chosen to stay discreet about his position. So, when he traveled with his daughters, Jasmine and Jade, he preferred to do so with as little fanfare as possible. Jasmine and Jade were twins, nearly indistinguishable to the casual observer, yet individually unique in every way that mattered. At 15 years old, they were in the middle of that transformative stage where the world still felt like a place brimming with unending possibilities. They were bright, curious, and full of the restless energy of youth. Jasmine, the older twin by 5 minutes, had a knack for history and politics. She devoured any book she could find on civilizations, revolutions, and the people who reshaped their societies. Jade, by contrast, was a natural artist and creative dreamer, drawn to painting, music, and any form of expression that allowed her to show the world exactly how she felt. They were flying to London, a trip that had been planned for months and eagerly anticipated by the entire family. Jordan had suggested it as part of a broader educational experience. He wanted his daughters to see the museums, the architecture, and the places where new ideas clashed with old traditions. He had always believed in the power of travel to expand young minds, to help them step beyond their comfort zones and engage with perspectives different from their own. The idea of being in another country made the twins giddy with excitement, and their mother, Elizabeth, fully supported the plan. Though Elizabeth had commitments back in their hometown, she encouraged the twins to go on this adventure with their father. She trusted Jordan's judgment, and she loved to see her daughters expand their worldview. On the day of departure, Jordan arrived at the airport with the girls in tow. He had booked 3 first-class tickets, yet, in typical Jordan fashion, he had done so quietly, simply purchasing them through the usual channels without making a show of who he was. Sometimes staff recognized him, sometimes they did not. Jordan never went out of his way to clarify the matter. He preferred anonymity, enjoying the chance to witness genuine human behavior unclouded by the knowledge of his power or status. At times, that meant he blended in as any regular passenger might, waiting in lines, occupying standard lounges, and observing every aspect of the airline's service. On this particular day, fate placed them in the path of Paula Wilkins. Paula was a seasoned flight attendant who had served in the airline industry for nearly 2 decades. She prided herself on professionalism, on her steady presence in the sky. However, she also possessed a tendency to judge people by appearances. She was vigilant in her duties, some would say to the point of rigidness, especially when it came to who she deemed acceptable for first-class accommodations. Paula enjoyed the authority her job gave her. She had the power to direct people, to decide whether they were abiding by the airline's rules, and she took her responsibility to maintain the exclusivity of first class rather seriously. From the moment she saw Jordan and the twins, her eyes flickered with an almost automatic disapproval. The girls wore casual sweatshirts, sneakers, and carried backpacks splashed with youthful designs. Jordan's attire was understated: an expensive but unbranded jacket, a comfortable pair of trousers, and well-worn sneakers that had accompanied him on many a long flight. They did not fit Paula's conception of the typical first-class travelers she was accustomed to: a certain style, an appearance of formality, or so she believed. As the family approached the boarding gate, Paula stood at her post, greeting passengers with a polite smile that did not quite reach her eyes. When Jordan handed her their boarding passes, Paula's brow furrowed. She scanned the tickets, then took a moment to glance up at the family. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, an unspoken question. She looked at the twins, who were practically bouncing with excitement. Then she peered over Jordan's shoulder as if expecting someone more suitably glamorous or businesslike to step forward. "Sir, these are first-class tickets," Paula said, her tone laced with a polite hint of doubt. "Are you sure you're in the right line?" Jordan offered a mild smile. He had seen this scenario play out before. It never grew any more pleasant, but he had learned to handle it with composure. "Yes," he replied calmly. "This is the correct line. Thank you." Paula seemed to hesitate. "All right, sir. Proceed. Welcome aboard." Jordan and the twins made their way onto the aircraft, relieved to settle in. They found their seats in the spacious first-class cabin, with large plush chairs arranged in a layout that would allow them privacy and comfort. The twins immediately started checking out the amenities: touchscreen monitors, reclining seats, blankets, pillows, delightedly comparing notes on which movies they might watch. Jordan found himself quietly smiling at his daughter's unfiltered joy. He loved to see them wide-eyed and inspired. But Paula was not done. As the flow of passengers continued, she kept looking toward Jordan and the twins with a furrowed brow, as though suspecting that their mere presence was a threat to the sanctity of the first-class cabin. The sight of the girls rummaging in their backpacks, pulling out snacks, and discussing their trip with excited voices seemed out of place to her. Over the years, she had become accustomed to polished business people, older couples who traveled with dignified reserve, or celebrities who wore sunglasses and kept to themselves. The free-spirited excitement of Jasmine and Jade unsettled her. Once the rest of the first-class passengers had boarded, Paula took a moment to approach the family. "Sir," she began, addressing Jordan with a courteous voice but an undercurrent of tension, "may I see your tickets again, please?" Jordan looked at her, calm and composed. "Certainly," he said. He handed over the same boarding passes. "Is there something amiss?" She studied them closely, turning the paper over as if looking for signs of tampering. "Just verifying," she replied. "We have to be sure everything is in order." She handed them back with a tight-lipped smile. "It appears fine." Jordan thanked her and tried to focus on relaxing, but he caught the shift in the twins' demeanor. They had noticed Paula's skeptical tone. Jasmine's eyes narrowed with the first flicker of annoyance. Jade cast a worried glance at her sister, then looked at Jordan questioningly. "Dad, is everything all right?" Jasmine asked in a hushed voice. Jordan offered a gentle nod. "Everything's fine," he whispered back. "She just wants to do her job correctly. Let's not worry too much about it. Focus on enjoying the flight." Paula lingered for a moment, then returned to her post at the front of the cabin, maintaining her vigilant watch. The engines began their rumbling. The captain's voice came over the speakers with flight details and a welcome. Soon they were in the air, ascending above the world's constraints, with a sky that stretched endlessly before them. The flight was scheduled to last several hours, with dinner, possible sleep, and then an early morning arrival in London. Jasmine had her headphones on, listening to music, but she kept an eye on Paula. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Jade alternated between flipping through the in-flight entertainment options and sketching in a small notebook, the tip of her pencil dancing as she tried to capture the swirl of clouds and the hush of the cabin in her art. Jordan closed his eyes, feigning rest, but he too felt the weight of Paula's gaze. He had been in enough board meetings, contract negotiations, and corporate encounters to recognize suspicion. He had encountered subtle bias numerous times and had learned how to navigate it with grace. It was precisely because of these experiences that he never announced his position at the airline. He wanted an unfiltered perspective on how his staff behaved toward passengers who did not conform to certain preconceived notions. In this instance, it seemed Paula was providing a very clear demonstration of such notions. After the plane leveled off, flight attendants began serving refreshments. Paula approached first-class passengers, offering them drinks and small plates of gourmet appetizers. When she came to Jordan's row, she forced a smile. "Would you like something to drink, sir?" she asked. He politely asked for water, while each twin requested a soda. Paula moved briskly, and a few moments later she returned with their drinks on a small tray. Jasmine said, "Thank you so much," while Jade offered a polite nod. Paula barely acknowledged their courtesy before moving on. Her tension was evident, and it did not go unnoticed by Jordan or the twins. Time passed slowly in the sky, with the hum of conversation filling the cabin. A businessman spoke into his phone about delayed contracts. A mother traveling with her young son in another row read him a story about knights and dragons. The girls sipped their sodas and whispered about their upcoming adventures, planning which museum they wanted to see first, what kind of art supplies Jade might find in London, and how Jasmine longed to visit historic sites she'd read about in her textbooks. They tried to keep their voices low, but every so often they would burst into excited giggles. Paula shot them a glance more than once, her disapproval concealed behind a veneer of professional politeness. She made a point of checking the seatbelts around them, cautioning them about noise, or reminding them that first class was a quiet environment for passengers who needed rest. Jordan, sensing the tension building, tried his best to settle his daughters without dampening their spirits entirely. Eventually, dinner service began. A different flight attendant, Samantha, came by with a warm smile. She treated the family kindly, addressing each of them politely, making small talk with the girls and showing genuine interest in their excitement about traveling abroad. Samantha's warmth stood in stark contrast to Paula's stiff interactions, and Jordan appreciated seeing at least one member of the crew who behaved as he believed they should. As dinner plates were cleared away and the cabin lights dimmed, Paula reappeared. She leaned toward Jordan and asked in a hushed but pointed tone, "Sir, I need to verify something. You purchased these tickets yourself, correct?" Jordan breathed slowly. "Yes, I did." Her eyes flickered toward the twins, then back to Jordan. "Were they possibly upgraded by any chance, or did you redeem miles? We have certain policies about seats assigned to unaccompanied minors or minors who are traveling on special tickets. I want to be absolutely sure everything is correct for these two." Jordan's patience began to wear thin. He kept his composure, but his voice grew firmer. "My daughters are not unaccompanied. I'm right here. We have valid first-class tickets purchased through official channels. Everything is as it should be." Paula nodded, but she looked unconvinced. "I understand. Please bear with me. I'm just following protocol." The twins exchanged a glance. Jasmine bit her lip, while Jade tried to focus on the sketch she was working on, shading the edges to distract herself from Paula's scrutiny. Jordan sensed his daughter's discomfort rising. He did not want to make a scene, but he also refused to be intimidated or to allow his daughters to be made to feel unwelcome. Still, he decided to handle the matter discreetly. In a few hours they would land and he would have ample opportunity to raise the issue with the proper channels. The flight progressed uneventfully for a while, and the cabin fell into an uneasy quiet. Some passengers dozed off, others watched movies or scrolled on their devices. Jordan closed his eyes for a moment, trying to clear his mind. But just as he was about to drift into a light sleep, he heard the sound of Paula's voice again, along with a slight commotion. "Excuse me, sir," she was saying. "We need to speak." Jordan opened his eyes to find Paula standing over him. Nearby, a tall man in uniform, another flight attendant or possibly a lead, looked on with concern. Paula had apparently escalated matters, claiming she needed a second opinion. Jordan sat up, meeting her gaze calmly. "What can I do for you?" She cleared her throat. "I'm afraid I need to check your identification and the identification of your daughters. This is a simple requirement for minors traveling internationally. We need to ensure that everything is in order." Jasmine stiffened, and Jade's eyes went wide. Jordan nodded. "All right," he said quietly. He reached into his carry-on, retrieved their passports, and handed them over. Paula examined them meticulously, flipping through the pages, scrutinizing every stamp, every letter. The man standing behind her shifted awkwardly. "Is everything fine, Paula?" he asked, sounding somewhat uncertain. He offered Jordan a small nod of acknowledgement and a faintly apologetic look. Paula took her time. "Yes," she said, grudgingly. "Everything seems fine." She returned the documents to Jordan, who slipped them back into his bag. Then, unexpectedly, Paula pressed on. "We had an incident some months ago involving passengers who weren't supposed to be in first class. It caused a disturbance. I'm just being cautious, especially when minors are traveling. I hope you understand." Jordan exhaled slowly. The tension in his neck and shoulders was building, but he forced himself to remain calm. He kept his voice low, making sure not to disturb other passengers. "I understand caution, but we've been checked repeatedly. Is there any other proof you require, or can we finally have a peaceful flight?" Paula looked flustered. It seemed she did not expect Jordan to push back. She took a step back, cleared her throat, and muttered a half-hearted apology. "I'm sorry if you felt inconvenienced. I'm just following procedure." Jordan nodded, but he remained silent, letting her see that her approach was neither welcome nor appropriate. The lead attendant gently touched Paula's shoulder, indicating it was time to move on. Paula forced a polite smile and walked away, leaving Jordan and the twins to exhale in relief. The lead attendant, recognizing some tension, gave Jordan a sympathetic expression before following Paula down the aisle. The twins turned to Jordan with questions brimming in their eyes. Jasmine spoke first. "Why does she keep bothering us?" "Dad, did we do something wrong?" Jade asked softly. Jordan shook his head, speaking in a measured tone. "No, you didn't. Sometimes people make assumptions based on how you look or how they think you should behave. It has nothing to do with your worth. Remember that." Jasmine looked troubled. "Does this happen to you a lot?" Jordan's gaze flickered. "I've experienced many different kinds of reactions in my life. This is just one of them." He didn't elaborate, but he hoped the girls understood. Bias, prejudice, or simple ignorance, whatever the root cause might be, was a reality he had learned to handle without letting it disrupt his composure. But seeing his daughters subjected to it ignited a protective spark in him. The rest of the flight was punctuated by awkward moments. Paula hovered in the periphery, her watchful eyes assessing the family with every passing minute. The twins tried to focus on their music, sketches, or in-flight entertainment, but the tension was palpable. Jordan alternated between reading a business magazine and trying to rest. He felt the quiet burn of frustration, tempered by his refusal to let it escalate in front of his girls. Sometime during the flight, Samantha, who seemed far kinder and more open-minded than Paula, came by to check on them. She leaned close to Jordan, whispering, "I'm sorry if my colleague has caused any discomfort. Is there anything I can do to make this flight more pleasant for you and your daughters?" Jordan gave her a grateful smile. "We're fine, thank you. I appreciate your kindness. It means a lot." Samantha nodded and turned her attention to the twins. "Anything I can get for you two? A different dessert, or maybe a refill on drinks?" Jade and Jasmine both thanked her and asked for a bit more water and some fruit. Samantha bustled away, returning promptly with their requests. She engaged them in light-hearted conversation about favorite travel destinations, and Jade mentioned she was looking forward to sketching the Tower of London. Jasmine chimed in with her excitement about reading historical plaques and seeing Westminster Abbey. Samantha's bright presence provided a stark contrast to Paula's cold watchfulness. Jordan was silently grateful. Acts of kindness, no matter how small, meant the world in such moments. After Samantha left, the twins settled, more at ease. Several hours later, the lights in the cabin were gradually brought up to simulate morning. Passengers stirred awake, stretching and yawning. The flight crew began to prepare for arrival, serving breakfast and making announcements about the local time and weather in London. Paula seemed determined to get in one final word before landing. She approached Jordan with a cautious politeness. "We'll be landing shortly, sir. I trust that you and your daughters had a satisfactory flight." Jordan's answer was measured, his face composed. "It was all right," he said simply. Jasmine and Jade stayed silent beside him, uncertain whether to speak. Paula nodded, pressing her lips together. "If you need anything, please feel free to let us know." Jordan gave a nod that ended the conversation. The plane touched down on the tarmac with a gentle bump, engines roaring in reverse thrust. Passengers began gathering their belongings, slipping laptops into bags, pocketing phones, and tidying up personal spaces. Paula continued to stand near the first-class aisle, ensuring that everything remained orderly. As the aircraft taxied to the gate, Jordan recalled that their arrival in London would mark the beginning of a new chapter in his daughters' lives. Fresh experiences, cultural exploration, and personal growth. He wouldn't let one rude individual overshadow what should be a wonderful trip. He resolved to handle the matter discreetly once they disembarked. At last, the seatbelt sign switched off and the door opened. The flight attendants began assisting passengers with disembarking. Paula dutifully thanked each traveler, wearing a mask of polite professionalism. When Jordan and the twins stepped off, Samantha offered them a genuine goodbye, even bending down slightly to wish the twins a wonderful time in London. Once they cleared the gate, Jordan led his daughters toward passport control. Tension still lingered, but he wanted to handle the matter without revealing too much in front of his daughters. As soon as they collected their baggage, he suggested the twins find a quiet spot to sit for a moment. He asked them to keep an eye on the luggage while he went to speak with one of the airline's ground staff. Jordan presented his elite membership card to a uniformed staff member at an airline assistance desk. The staffer recognized the card immediately and straightened with courtesy. "Of course, Mr. West. How can I help you?" Jordan spoke quietly, mindful of passers-by. "I'd like to file a formal concern regarding a flight attendant's behavior on our flight today. It was flight number 107, inbound from New York." The staffer leaned in, taking notes. "Certainly. I'll record all details. Do you have the attendant's name?" Jordan exhaled. "Paula Wilkins," he said. "She repeatedly questioned our right to be in first class, made us feel uncomfortable, and went beyond normal protocol. I'd like this matter looked into." The staffer nodded. "We value your feedback. Rest assured, Mr. West, this will be handled. Someone from our corporate office will reach out to you. Is there anything else I can do right now to address your immediate concerns? Jordan offered a thin smile. No, thank you. My daughters and I are looking forward to enjoying London. I just want to be sure the incident is documented. He returned to the twins, who were waiting patiently near their suitcases. Jade was busy drawing in her sketchbook, capturing the hustle and bustle of the arrival hall. Jasmine looked relieved to see her father, eager to leave the airport behind and dive into their London adventure. They departed for the hotel, weaving through the city's busy streets until they arrived at an elegant lodging not far from the heart of London's cultural and historical landmarks. The twins exclaimed in delight at the sights: black cabs, red double-decker buses, and the grand architecture that seemed so different from home. Jordan kept his focus on ensuring the twins felt welcomed in this new environment. They spent the next few days exploring museums, wandering through art galleries, tasting local cuisine, and learning about England's rich history. Jordan watched his daughters grow more confident as they navigated unfamiliar surroundings. The earlier unpleasantness aboard the plane receded into the background of their memories. Unbeknownst to Paula, though, the wheels of change were already in motion. When Jordan's formal complaint filtered through the airline's internal channels, it caused immediate waves. Typically, a customer's concern might warrant a polite follow-up or standard corporate apology. But Jordan West was not just any passenger. Though his approach was discreet, the airline's management team was well aware of who he was. One of the airline's top executives, a colleague of Jordan's named Christopher Lawson, received the report in his email inbox. Christopher read the details of the incident with growing concern. He understood that Jordan preferred to keep his identity private when traveling, but he also recognized this was not a trivial misunderstanding. If Paula's behavior indicated deeper biases or an unprofessional attitude, it had to be addressed. Christopher typed a quick message. This requires immediate attention. Schedule a meeting with Ms. Wilkins and her supervisor. I will handle this personally. CL. And so, while Jordan and his daughters roamed museums, gazed at centuries-old architecture, and indulged in local pastries, a storm brewed within the airline's administrative offices. Managers hustled to collect data on Paula's past performance, any prior complaints, and statements from other crew members on that flight. Samantha's name surfaced as a witness. She was contacted to describe events in more detail. Without malice or exaggeration, she provided a straightforward account of Paula's repeated attempts to verify the family's first-class status and the discomfort it caused. Meanwhile, Jordan had no intention of cutting their trip short to return and deal with corporate affairs. He placed his trust in the system he had helped create. He had always insisted on thorough training and fairness in all aspects of employee conduct. The airline, under his guidance, maintained policies of strict professionalism, courtesy, and respect. He wanted no special treatment for himself, only that the same standards be applied to every passenger. If Paula had neglected those standards, she needed to be reminded of her duty or face the consequences. Each day in London was a treasure for the twins. They devoured English breakfasts of eggs, baked beans, and toast. They admired the grand Houses of Parliament, the Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, and the British Museum's famed Rosetta Stone. Jordan found particular joy in seeing their intellectual curiosity blossom. Jasmine took pages of notes about historical events, while Jade's sketchbook overflowed with quick studies of statues, buildings, and smiling street performers. But even in this vibrant new setting, the memory of Paula's treatment lingered, casting a subtle shadow. One evening, back in their hotel room, Jasmine brought up the topic. Dad, I keep thinking about that flight attendant. She seemed determined to prove we weren't supposed to be there. Jordan contemplated how to respond. Some people carry biases. They might think first class belongs to a certain type of traveler. Maybe she thought you looked too young or too casual. Maybe she made judgments about the color of our skin or the way we dress. We can't know her full motivation, but we felt the outcome. Jade set aside her sketchbook. It felt so unfair. Part of me wanted to tell her who you really are, but I was too scared. And you always taught us not to flaunt our advantages. Jordan nodded. Yes, revealing my position could force people to treat me differently, not always in a genuine way. I prefer to see how they behave when they think I'm just any passenger. It tells me more about their true character. Jasmine looked thoughtful. So, you're okay with letting them think whatever they want, so you can see how they really act? Partly, Jordan replied, but I also want them to learn from it. If Paula is doing this to us, she might be doing it to others. That's not acceptable. Once we return, I'll follow through with the corporate process. The twins nodded. They respected their father's measured approach, though they still felt the sting of the experience. It opened their eyes to the complexities of adulthood, where fairness was not guaranteed, and appearances often mattered more than merit. Despite the unsettling event, they slept well that night, tired from a day of exploring and still excited for what awaited them in the days ahead. Back in the airline's main office, Christopher Lawson convened a small meeting. Paula was asked to attend, along with her direct supervisor, Natalie Green. As Paula stepped into the conference room, her demeanor appeared both proud and slightly defensive. She had no idea the passenger who lodged the complaint was an influential owner of the airline. All she knew was that a serious complaint had been filed against her, and that was uncommon in her long career. Christopher, a stern but fair executive, greeted them. Thank you for coming. We need to discuss a complaint received from a passenger about the flight from New York to London a few days ago. He flipped through some documents. This passenger indicated that you repeatedly questioned the legitimacy of his first-class tickets and subjected him and his 2 daughters to undue scrutiny. Paula bristled. I was doing my job. We have procedures. Natalie, her supervisor, cast Paula a cautionary look. We all have procedures, but it sounds like you went beyond normal policy. I was ensuring the safety and comfort of our first-class passengers, Paula insisted, her voice taking on a defensive edge. We have to be careful about who sits in first class. I didn't see evidence that the father and his daughters were typical first-class travelers. They were so casual. Christopher's tone remained even. According to witnesses, your behavior caused significant discomfort. The father did provide valid tickets, and you requested additional verification multiple times. Is that correct? Paula nodded stiffly. Yes, they were minors. I needed to confirm their status. Christopher looked unimpressed. Our records indicate that the family was, in fact, traveling on fully paid first-class tickets. There were no irregularities. Are you aware that the father has made previous trips in first class with no issues, and that other attendants have never raised these concerns? Paula's eyes flickered with surprise. She glanced at Natalie, perhaps looking for support. I was not aware of his history. I only saw what was in front of me, and they didn't look appropriate for first class. Christopher's frown deepened. What do you mean by appropriate? Paula paused, choosing her words carefully. They were dressed more casually, and they acted a bit loud for that cabin. Typically, I expect a different demeanor from first-class passengers. Christopher exchanged a glance with Natalie. He didn't need to elaborate on the obvious implications of Paula's statement. First-class passengers pay for comfort and service, not a dress code. Some people travel for business, some for leisure. Their attire or appearance does not entitle you to treat them differently. Would you have treated them the same way if they matched your expectations of how first-class travelers look? Paula's cheeks grew warm, and she squared her shoulders. "I was just doing my duty. I didn't think it was a problem." Natalie intervened. "Paula, you've been a flight attendant for nearly 20 years. You should know that the airline's policy is to treat all passengers with equal respect and courtesy, regardless of appearance. If they had valid tickets, the only time you should question them is if there's a credible reason to suspect an issue. According to the complaint, you persisted even after confirming their tickets multiple times." Paula grew silent, her pride mingling with unease. Christopher picked up a final sheet of paper. "There's another fact you should be aware of. The passenger in question is not just a random traveler. He is one of the principal owners of this airline. His name is Jordan West." The color drained from Paula's face. Her mouth opened slightly, and she looked genuinely stunned. "He owns the airline?" Christopher nodded. "Yes. He usually keeps his identity private to ensure our staff are consistent in their professionalism. Unfortunately, this incident highlights the very problem he's trying to address. Prejudice or assumptions about who belongs in first class are not acceptable. This is a serious matter." Paula's voice wavered. "I didn't know. I just thought." Christopher remained calm. "Whether you knew or not is irrelevant. Our policy doesn't change based on the passenger's position. But the fact you treated him that way, and that you singled out his daughters, shows us there's a deeper issue. We need to consider disciplinary action and additional training to prevent any repeat of this behavior." Natalie pressed her lips together. "I'll recommend a formal letter of warning and mandatory diversity and sensitivity training. Paula, you understand this is a lenient measure. If Mr. West wanted to escalate this, the consequences could be much more severe." Paula nodded, her eyes downcast, clearly shaken. She managed to voice a stammering apology. "I'm sorry, I truly am. I had no intention of discriminating against them. I was only trying to be cautious." Christopher took a measured breath. "We appreciate that you see the need to apologize, but this has to translate into changed behavior. Our airline can't afford to lose trust, especially not because of an employee's personal biases." With that, the meeting concluded. Paula left the room in near silence, a swirl of embarrassment and regret weighing her down. Natalie and Christopher stayed behind for a few minutes to finalize their notes. Christopher planned to email Jordan personally, informing him of the outcome and assuring him that corrective steps were taken. Meanwhile, Jordan and the twins were in the midst of a delightful morning in London. They stood along the banks of the Thames, gazing at the skyline. Jasmine took photographs, particularly of Parliament spires. Jade tried to capture the reflection of light on the water in her sketchbook. Their father looked on with pride. He loved these moments of peaceful exploration, free from tension and conflict. Later that day, when they returned to the hotel, Jordan checked his phone and saw an email from Christopher. His eyes scanned the message, reading about the meeting, Paula's reaction, and the subsequent steps. Jordan felt a sense of relief. He appreciated that it was handled quickly and thoroughly, and he had faith that the resolution would serve as a warning to any other employee who might act similarly. That evening, during dinner at a cozy restaurant tucked away in a narrow street near Covent Garden, Jordan decided to let the twins know what had transpired back at the airline. They were halfway through a meal of fish and chips, and Jade was excitedly describing the paintings she'd seen at the National Gallery. When there was a natural pause in the conversation, Jordan cleared his throat. "I received an update about the flight attendant. The airline took immediate steps. She faced disciplinary action and has to attend some training sessions. She apologized, though indirectly, for what she did." Jasmine set down her fork. "Really? They responded that fast?" Jordan nodded. "They take these matters seriously, especially since fairness and professionalism are cornerstones of our business." Jade's eyes flickered with relief. "So, she won't do that to anyone else?" "That's the goal," Jordan replied. "They're making sure she knows that kind of behavior isn't acceptable." Jasmine looked pensive, swirling the water in her glass. "Do you think she would have apologized if she hadn't found out who you are?" Jordan paused, then answered honestly. "I can't say for sure. But what matters is the airline is addressing the problem. My hope is that she learns from this and treats all passengers with respect going forward." Jade sighed. "I guess that's the best we can hope for." They continued their dinner, the conversation gradually shifting to the wonders they had seen that day. The twins marveled at the centuries of history, the layers of culture they encountered in London's streets. Jordan, for his part, took satisfaction in knowing the airline he helped build had rules and people in place who would act promptly when issues arose. Still, he felt a pang thinking about how many travelers might face similar discrimination without the recourse he had. That thought fueled his ongoing commitment to shaping a corporate culture where every passenger received fair treatment. The following morning, the family boarded a train to explore the English countryside. Rolling hills, dotted with sheep and hedgerows, passed by in a picturesque blur. Jasmine read about the local legends tied to ancient castles, while Jade sketched the fields and farms. Jordan simply enjoyed the opportunity to slow down, a respite from his typically fast-paced business life. Midway through their journey, the conversation drifted back to the concept of prejudice and how it manifests in small, often insidious ways. Jasmine brought it up, reflecting on her experiences in school. She recalled moments when teachers or classmates doubted her abilities or made assumptions based on her heritage. Jade added her own perspective, recalling an art competition where her pieces had been judged with suspiciously tepid enthusiasm, despite her obvious talent. Jordan listened attentively, offering guidance. "Whenever you face something like that, remember your worth isn't defined by what someone else thinks. If they don't see you for who you are, that's on them. Our job is to keep moving forward, never letting their doubt become our own." The twins nodded. They felt pride in their heritage, in their father's accomplishments, and in their own skills. Jordan's advice resonated. They recognized the reality that bias existed, but they also understood that they had the power to persist and thrive regardless. The rest of their time in England was peaceful, a tapestry of cultural experiences and father-daughter bonding. When they finally packed their bags for the return flight, the twins felt a tinge of sadness that their trip was ending, but also a sense of excitement to go home and share their stories with Elizabeth. Jordan, too, anticipated the warmth of being back with his wife and returning to the familiar routines of daily life, though now he would be more vigilant than ever about the conduct of his staff. On the day of departure, they arrived at the London airport with a renewed sense of anticipation. This time, Jordan had arranged a different flight so they could see more of Europe's skies on their way back home. They approached the check-in desk, where the agent recognized Jordan's top-tier membership status and greeted them warmly. There were no complications, no suspicious glances. The agent simply smiled, processed their tickets, and wished them a pleasant flight. As they made their way through security, the twins spoke in excited tones about the souvenirs they had collected, the notebooks filled with Jade's sketches, and the photos Jasmine had saved on her phone. Jordan felt a wave of gratitude that the airline and its staff typically functioned smoothly, providing the pleasant experiences customers expected. He knew the difference a good flight attendant could make. They could turn a stressful journey into a comforting, even memorable, experience. After a leisurely stroll around the terminal shops, the family boarded their flight. This time, the flight attendants, none of whom were Paula, exhibited the respectful, warm professionalism Jordan had come to cherish in his company. The captain welcomed all travelers, the first-class cabin was inviting, and the entire process felt seamless. When they touched down back home, Elizabeth was waiting for them at arrivals. The twins rushed into her arms, practically talking over each other as they tried to describe every detail of their travels. Jordan smiled, standing a step behind, watching the reunion. Elizabeth locked eyes with him, and he could see the quiet question there. How did it go? He gave her a reassuring nod, a signal that the journey, though not without complications, had ultimately been a success. Once they were in the car, with luggage stored in the trunk, Elizabeth asked more directly about the flight attendant incident. Jordan explained how the airline had handled it, the disciplinary measures, and the required training. Elizabeth listened, her expression shifting between sympathy for those who might face such treatment and gratitude that Jordan had the influence to address it head-on. Life soon returned to its usual rhythm. The twins prepared for school, sharing stories from their trip with friends and teachers. Jade showed off her sketches, while Jasmine gave a spirited presentation about British history. Jordan immersed himself in the myriad responsibilities of running an airline, attending meetings, reviewing policies, and strategizing expansions to new routes. But one day, an unexpected letter arrived. It was a carefully written apology from Paula Wilkins. Jordan sat in his home office, scanning the letter's contents. Paula wrote that she realized her actions had been rooted in preconceived notions, and that she deeply regretted making his family uncomfortable. She thanked him for indirectly showing her where she needed to improve, acknowledging she had begun her sensitivity training and was learning about the harmful effects of bias. He shared the letter with Elizabeth and the twins. They read it in thoughtful silence. Jade looked up and said, "Dad, do you think she's sincere?" Jordan weighed his words. "I like to believe she is. It can't be easy to admit you were wrong." Jasmine traced her finger over the edge of the letter. "Maybe this will make her better at her job, and kinder to other passengers." Jordan nodded. "That's what we hope for. Everyone can learn if they're willing." In the weeks that followed, Jordan quietly followed up with the airline's HR department to see if there were any more complaints about Paula. There were none. It seemed her behavior had indeed changed. The story became something of a cautionary tale among airline employees. Treat every passenger with respect because you never know who they might be, or, more importantly, because it's simply the right thing to do. For the twins, the event served as a lesson about the subtle ways prejudice can show itself and how a calm but firm response can lead to meaningful change. They recognized that while not everyone had a father who owned the airline, everyone deserved dignity and fairness, from the most frequent flyer to the occasional traveler. Their father's choice to remain incognito whenever he traveled also left a strong impression on them. It reinforced the idea that true character emerges when no one is watching, how people behave toward others when they think they have nothing to gain or lose by being kind. The day came when Jordan needed to fly again for business. This time, he was traveling alone, heading to a conference. Elizabeth and the twins waved him off at the curb. The check-in agent greeted him politely. No special fanfare. Jordan smiled to himself, appreciating the anonymity. As he boarded the plane, he felt the usual buzz of pre-flight energy. Crew members rushed up and down the aisles, ensuring everything was in order. Passengers stowed their bags, rummaged for books, or adjusted their seat belts. Jordan took his seat in first class, discreetly observing the interactions around him. The flight attendants were warm and attentive. One of them, noticing Jordan's quiet demeanor, asked if he needed anything. He declined politely, settling in. He remembered how once, not too long ago, a particular flight attendant had approached him with an entirely different attitude. Now, he felt hope that the system was working, that people could grow, and that the airline he cared for continued to uphold values of respect and equity. He gazed out the window at the runway lights, reflecting on how a single flight could unveil so many layers of human behavior, preconceptions, biases, kindness, apologies, and learning. In the hush before takeoff, his thoughts drifted to Jasmine and Jade, imagining their excited chatter as they recounted every detail of their London trip for the umpteenth time. He smiled, grateful for the growth they had experienced, and for the subtle changes that had taken root in Paula's life as well. Soon, the plane lifted off, slicing through the skies with a gentle surge. Jordan inhaled, letting the familiar hum of the engines soothe him. High above the clouds, he thought of everything that had transpired. A flight attendant's bias, 2 young sisters hurt and confusion, a father's measured response, and the eventual lesson learned. It was a reminder that transformation often begins in the smallest moments, perhaps even at 30,000 feet, among strangers who might just hold the power to teach one another how to be better. And so, life continued. Jordan carried forward, quietly guiding the airline he loved, never looking for glory but always insisting on fairness, because each passenger's story mattered. Jasmine and Jade grew older, holding on to that London trip as a testament to both the joys of exploration and the challenges of prejudice. Elizabeth watched over them all with unwavering love, supporting Jordan's efforts to cultivate a world where courtesy and mutual respect were the standard, not the exception. Sometimes, the biggest revelations come in the most unexpected places. For Paula, it came aboard a transatlantic flight, where she discovered that the twin girls she tried to sideline were actually accompanied by a father who owned the very company employing her. That twist of fate forced her to confront her assumptions, and it gave her a chance to change. For Jordan and his daughters, it was a moment that confirmed the importance of standing firm against prejudice while offering a path for redemption. Ultimately, each person who heard the story took away a simple, powerful truth. You never really know the value or story of the person next to you, and when you choose to treat people with respect, without prejudice or assumptions, you contribute to a more welcoming, caring world, one flight at a time. Did you enjoy this story of ambition, courage, and the power of one voice to spark change? Let us know in the comments. What part resonated with you the most, or which character's journey surprised you? We love hearing your thoughts. And if you want more stories like this, full of twists, heart, and inspiration, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. There's plenty more where this came from, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey.